Welcome. This is the official opening of CAYR's new offices in Newmarket, Ontario. Please come on in.
CAYR's new office is located at 17665 Leslie Street, Unit 12. The space is an administrative hub and provides space to support service users. Upon entering the bright and welcoming space, we find both reception and a service user room. This room is a private and comfortable spot where staff and service users can interact. Many resources are available: harm reduction supplies, access to the food pantry, personal hygiene supplies, and blankets. Hospitality is on offer as well, with a fridge and coffee station and use of the Rainbo Space Library. We strive to meet a variety of needs all in one convenient spot. As we move further into the office, we find workstations for staff teams. The Rainbow Space team works in the community, meeting 2S LGBTQ folks where they are throughout York Region. Either online or in person, Kiana, Jen, and Prainee provide support and social connection to a beautifully diverse group. The harm reduction team of Era, Alex, and Prainee base their operations here, but focus on community outreach. Next is the Women's Health Coordinator, or Y Worker, shared this year by Emily and Valerie. The next spot is occupied by Wahida from our HIV/AIDS program. The Men's Health Coordinator, Lorcan, is based at this workstation. Moving on to the other section of the office, there are additional spaces for staff. Just inside the door, we find Monica and Kate's desks, the other members of the HIV team. Also in this space is Mark's desk, our communications and operations manager. Please excuse a bit of clutter on the tour, as we find ourselves still unpacking from our move, and with a wealth of PPE and other supplies to meet the needs of our service users. The screen you see marks out the spot where we plan to do some renovations. That is, building a wall with a door to divide some more privacy while still maintaining workflow and an open door policy. No office is complete without a good kitchenette. Staff have access to a sink, microwave, fridge, and hospitality supplies for whatever their needs might be. We're still working on the decor, but we have some great pieces that represent the work we do and the values we hold. We even have a couple of doors, fantastic pieces of art that we plan to use in our renovations. At the back of our office, we have a large multi-purpose room. We have a large table with chairs for meetings and working on projects. In the pandemic, we can even partition the space with plexiglass. The room houses files and supplies. It also features a back door with alley access for easy loading and unloading. It is a room that will meet many needs. And of course, everyone needs access to a clean, gender-neutral washroom. And that completes our tour. Thank you so much for visiting, and I look forward to the day when we will be able to safely open our doors to the community once again. Now we're going to transition to staff for sharing an overview of programs and supports available at CAYR.
Hey there. This video is a brief overview of CAYR Community Connections HIV Support Services Program, presented by Wahida Ali, Program Coordinator HIV Support, and Kate Anderson, Program Assistant HIV Support. The HIV Support Services Program offers specialized and combined services for people living with HIV/AIDS, newly diagnosed to long-term survivors, and people affected or at risk of HIV.
Our agency values are centered around the greater and meaningful involvement of people living with HIV/AIDS to inform the services that we provide, to provide feedback, and also engage in program and service deliveries. Sustainable livelihood framework is used to explore 4 aspects of people's lives: what is holding people back, What assets, strengths do people have that can be built upon? What stage are people at? And how do policies and institutions affect people's lives? Asset mapping, or My Asset, is a tool used to help clients identify their strengths and resources. It is a strength-based perspective. Individuals identify their strengths rather than focus on what they may see as weaknesses. These strengths are motivating and used as the foundations for goal setting and achieving desired outcomes. People living with HIV/AIDS, as well as friends and family members, can access a safer, inclusive, social space to engage with others, HIV supportive case management, HIV pre- and post-test counseling, treatment and medication adherence support, interpretation support, transportation support, food and nutritional support, practical and emergency financial assistance, wellness and life skills development programs, annual education scholarship, peer learning and social groups, as well as volunteering and leadership development opportunities.
The HIV Support Services Sustainable Livelihood includes supportive and motivational counseling. We do not have clinical counseling, but the majority of our staff are trained in motivational interviewing, which supports the individual by meeting them where they are at. It is a process that allows us to build rapport and allows us to work together in a goal-setting case management process that is led by them. It also involves case management, which includes a needs assessment, referral, and linkages to other community resources or social entitlements, accompaniments, follow-ups, and working towards having each client seeking and achieving an undetectable viral load. We also work towards addressing barriers in their lives that impede this. We have the monthly meetings, which is called the Survivors Group. We also provide practical support, which involves transit ticket program and drive to care program, a compassionate fund. We have the winter needs holiday program and a food pantry. There's also peer leadership. To truly do justice to our mission of striving towards GIPA-MIPA, CAYR focuses on creating leadership opportunities for our clients and fostering their life skills and transferable skills in employment or other aspects of their life. We'll talk more about this in the next slide. The leadership opportunities at CAYR includes the 2 peer advisory committees. We have workshops and training opportunities for life skills and development, which could be in-house or external. We have the Central Opening Doors Conference and the leadership retreats and development sessions for PAC members. And there is also various volunteering options at CAYR. Here are some peer leadership stories. One of our service users has developed resilience and leadership skills over the years. She now sits on 2 peer advisory committees, is a peer mentor, and is pursuing a certificate course in social work. A limited English-speaking service user is now a peer mentor to other limited English-speaking service users. A service user who faced social isolation has been able to overcome her limitations. She attends almost all HIV support events now and is also a member of 2 peer advisory committees. Thank you for listening.
Hi, thank you for joining us today at CAYR. My name is Ara Amy Eyre, and I'm the Harm Reduction Specialist.
My name's Alex Chan, and I'm the Harm Reduction Outreach Worker.
And today we're going to be talking to you about the Harm Reduction program here at CAYR. What is harm reduction? That's a great place to start. Harm reduction refers to policies, programs, and practices that aim to reduce the harms associated with the use of psychoactive drugs in people. And so the defining feature is that as harm reduction workers, our focus is on the prevention of harm rather than on the prevention of drug use itself. That allows us to keep our focus on people who continue to use drugs by offering meaningful, tangible supports and resources. Why is harm reduction important? Harm reduction is so important because it gives power back to the service user. It's a model that says you have the right to choose and you are your own best expert. And so we take our cues from service users and create individualized care plans based on their goals. It encourages positive health behaviors. It reduces the risk of viral infection and bacterial transmission. It also encourages regular testing. And what we have learned from regular testing is that earlier diagnosis means earlier treatment, which often leads to better health outcomes. And the other thing that harm reduction does is it helps service users create a support network by creating better physical and mental health for individuals who use drugs by connecting them to other individuals who use drugs for support and resources. Some of the harm reduction services that we provide at CAYR include needle and syringe distribution. We also provide kits to people, harm reduction kits, including crack, meth, snorting, injecting, and safer sex kits. We provide information and resources on how to use the contents of the kits and how to use drugs safely. We are available for a variety of supports and work with each individual client to custom tailor the kinds of supports that we can provide for them.
Our injection kits come in 2 different varieties, shorts and long needles. They also include things like sterile water, vitamin C, a clipper, filters, alcohol wipes, tourniquets, and a square cotton pad. With our meth and crack kits, they come with each variety of different pipes, the crack pipes and the meth pipes. They also both include screens, push sticks, alcohol swabs, and mouthpieces. And lastly, we just want to touch upon Toronto's drug checking service. Launched in October of 2019, Toronto's drug checking service offers people who use drugs timely and detailed information on the contents of their drugs, helping them make more informed decisions. People are able to bring in used pipes, used needles, and within about 1 day are able to know what's exactly in their drugs. People who use drugs in Toronto have long advocated for access to drug checking in an effort to reduce harms associated with using drugs from an unregulated supply. This drug checking service also helps to uncover the makeup of Toronto's unregulated drug supply, which includes illegal drugs as well as legal drugs diverted from regulated markets for sale through criminal channels. The overdose crisis is being driven by the unsafe supply. Toronto's drug checking service results are likely representative of drugs being used all over Canada, as supply is limited to a number of cartels. Therefore, many people who do not use opioids risk dying of an opioid overdose. As the drug supply in Canada is contaminated, residents of Canada and York Region will be using drugs that potentially contain powerful opioids and may not know. Toronto's drug checking service is one of a few pilot projects that receive funding from Health Canada to prevent overdose and is being scientifically evaluated to understand its impacts on the health and well-being of people who use drugs. Now note, this drug checking service isn't available in York Region just yet, but we're advocating very much for it to be so.
Please do not hesitate to contact Ara or Alex if you need any harm reduction supplies or supports. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the Rainbow Space program. My name is Jennifer Silk. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a program specialist with the Rainbow Space program.
And I'm Kiana Graham. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm also a Rainbow Space program specialist.
The Rainbow Space program is a program that offers regular social and recreational opportunities for 2S LGBTQ+ members and allies to get together, youth ages 13 to 29 and older adults 55+. Although for All of our events for older adults and all of our special events, all ages are welcome. Older adult 2S LGBTQ+ and ally coffee circles rotate between 10 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. 2S LGBTQ+ and allies youth fun is at 4 p.m. on Thursdays. 2S LGBTQ+ and allies monthly events to celebrate 2S LGBTQ+ dates of recognition, examples, Pride, National Coming Out Day, etc., and various other activities offered throughout the year.
So within the community before COVID, in partnership with other CAYR programs, Rainbow Space offers trainings on what the 2S LGBTQ acronym means and how to create safer spaces. So we kind of just offer that as a like basics beginners level course, and then we can add a more advanced course on top of that once people get the basics down.
Also, outside of COVID, community outreach is a big part of something that Rainbow Space is involved in. Rainbow Space participates in many community activities for youth and older adults throughout the year all across York Region. We work closely with school boards, community centers, libraries, and many other community partners who we work with to serve the 2S LGBTQ+ community.
So we have 3 peer advisory committees, the youth one, the older adults one, and the community partners one. I'm going to be talking about the youth one. The youth one is made up of 10 youth who identify as some part of the community, and they help us with promoting our events, ideas for events, attending and encouraging other people to attend the event, so like other youth.
And for the older adult peer advisory committee also is a group of 6 and also members from the 2S LGBTQ+ community who help guide us with the Rainbow Space programming, promoting, and what sorts of things we should offer throughout the year.
And our last one is our project advisory committee, which is made up of community partners who help us with our programming. So they give us feedback on like how to reach more people, and they help us with promotion.
Newsletter and social media. Rainbow Space has a monthly newsletter which focuses on 2S LGBTQ+ content and events from Rainbow Space, CAYR, as well as other community partners. In this newsletter, you'll find all kinds of information, articles, things that are happening, as well as dates of recognition throughout that month. We're also very active on Facebook and Instagram for promoting our events that we have throughout the year.
And thank you for listening to our video. We can be reached, the Rainbow Space program can be reached at rainbowspace@cayrcc.org. And the information for me is kgraham@cayrcc.org.
And my information is jsilk@cayrcc.org. Thank you.
As part of CAYR's HIV and AIDS work, we also have the Women's Health Program. This program is part of a broader provincial-wide strategy entitled the Women in HIV/AIDS Initiative. This encompasses 16 coordinators from across Ontario. CAYR's Women's Health Program works to serve women in York Region and strives to create safe, confidential, and inclusive spaces for women. We do this by ensuring social and healthcare services are available for women living with HIV and for those who are at risk of contracting HIV. The first area of work I want to discuss is healthcare centered on women's needs and lived experiences. This work and all of the work done as part of the Women's Health Program is inclusive for trans and cis women, as well as non-binary femme folks. This work is done through creating relationships with key stakeholders in York Region and engaging with local community initiatives related to women's needs, such as the Violence Against Women Committee, Take Back the Night Committee, and others. We also work to promote the integration of HIV/AIDS into programs, services, and procedures across York Region. This work also includes increasing access to services for women such as STBBI testing and HIV testing, as well as HIV self-testing, increasing access to PrEP and PEP, harm reduction services, and more. An important part of this work is working towards making sure harm reduction services are accessible to women across York Region, and that organizations providing these services recognize the different ways that women might access them. Through this work, we hope to create more access to harm reduction supplies and resources for women who use drugs. This includes educating community partners on women's needs and how to make their programs more accessible, increasing awareness of overdose and the current opioid crisis, and joining community initiatives such as the Harm Reduction Coalition of York Region. This also includes addressing the different harms that women who use drugs face, including gender-based violence, sexual assault, HIV and other STBBIs, poverty, racism, stigma when it comes to mothering and parenting, criminalization, and more. Finally, a large part of our work focuses on community and emotional wellness. Much of this work is guided by CAYR's Women's Peer Advisory Committee. We try to create spaces for women to connect with each other and to host events focused on women's health. This includes Love Positive Women, which is an international initiative meant to show love and support for women living with HIV. We often do an event for International Women's Day. We host support groups, including an upcoming group for women who are HIV positive while pregnant or who are HIV positive and are new mothers, and more. If you would like more information about our Women's Health Program, contact our program coordinator, Valerie, by phone or email. Thank you for listening.
Hi everyone, my name is Lorcan. I'm the Men's Health Program Coordinator at CAYR. My pronouns are he and him. I primarily work with gay, bisexual, queer and other men who have sex with men, primarily around sexual health promotion, HIV prevention and harm reduction. I want to just give a quick overview into my work, and I guess the three main pillars of my work. And they would kind of fall under these topics of community outreach, developing gay, bisexual, men who have sex with men, sexual health initiatives, as well as delivering trainings and workshops throughout York Region. In terms of outreach, online outreach, it will be one side of the work that I do, and that comprises of me going on these hookup apps, these dating apps that a lot of men who have sex with men use, primarily, as a way of hooking up or a way of finding someone to have sex with. So I provide, I guess, a service on the site where folks can message me and ask me questions about anything that they feel they want to know about staying safe, safer sex, harm reduction, or just a chat, and really gives me, I guess, a great opportunity to keep my finger on the pulse as to what's going on in the community and the type of language that's being used and that type of thing. So it's just a really fantastic opportunity to have. The physical outreach that my program is involved in has been heavily stopped, I guess, or hampered from COVID restrictions. But before that, I've been involved in physical outreach to community partners, as well as to sex shops and adult video stores around York Region. Shift will be one of our fantastic partners in Richmond Hill, that we do a lot of outreach with, as well as other cruising locations where guys will be at. And at those outreach locations, we do condom and lube distribution, provide sexual health and harm reduction promotion materials, and we can do referrals to others programs at CAYR or other agency referrals in the region as well. And then in terms of gay, bisexual, men who have sex with men, sexual health initiatives, this is, I guess, anything that will come up that relates to safer sex and HIV prevention for queer guys, doing testing opportunities such as self-testing kits, which we've spoken about. We're currently in the middle of developing party and play harm reduction kits for folks who use drugs during sex. And we're constantly developing and promoting digital resources around improving positive health outcomes for queer guys. One big one in particular over the last couple of months has been sex during COVID, and how guys can go about, having sex in ways that reduce the risk of COVID spread, but also of spreading of STBBIs and HIV. And there's a part of my work that is involved in advocacy around improving access to things like PrEP in your region, which has historically been more difficult to access. And then the last pillar, I guess, is that training and workshop delivery. I work with fantastic other members on the staff in terms of CAYR offering trainings around sexual health, around HIV, around hepatitis, around drug use, build capacity in our community partners. We deliver a lot of workshops and events along with our community partners aimed at youth in particular around safe sex and safer drug use. And when the occasion calls, so I speak at events and conferences around particular issues that might affect gay, bisexual, heterosexual men, particularly around their sexual health and well-being. And that's the men's health program.
We will begin by talking about the digital storytelling workshops. Digital storytelling workshops provide individuals who identify as 2S LGBTQ+, use substances, and/or are impacted by HIV/AIDS with an opportunity to tell their story in a creative way. Participants have the opportunity to create a short video, 2 to 4 minutes in length, of image, voice, text, and music layered together. It focuses on the everyday person's ability to share aspects of their life story. It is grounded in the storyteller's control over telling their story, so folks could share however much or little they feel comfortable with. Consent to share stories is ongoing. Participants could share their story just within the workshop they attend or give CAYR consent to show their digital story to others. Part 1 of these workshops will focus on script writing, and Part 2 of these workshops will focus on transforming one's written story to video form.
So, it all begins.
Growing up in the York region as a racialized queer individual, I found that there wasn't very much representation of people like me. I knew I was queer in my early elementary school years, but found it really difficult to be my authentically queer self, as queer media and the celebrities who were out at the time were predominantly white. Although I was out to myself at a very young age, coming out to anyone else took quite some time, as I didn't feel like I would have a support system and felt very alone with this part of my identity. In my final year of high school, I mustered up the courage to come out to 2 of my closest friends. We were seated around a cafeteria table during lunch, and even though I wanted to tell them, I couldn't find the words to say. They were patient and supportive, encouraging me to be my most authentic self. Coming out to my friends felt liberating, and I wanted to completely get the weight of being closeted off of my shoulders, but did not feel like I was completely ready to tell everyone just yet. I came out to my sister shortly after coming out to my friends, and felt like I was finally starting to live my truth. Having someone in my conservative South Asian family accept me for who I was made me hopeful that the rest of my coming out process may not be as harsh as I anticipated. After 4 years of coming out in various ways and being involved in advocating for my community, I felt confident and ready to come out to my parents. I still remember how fast my heart was beating and how sweaty my palms were in anticipation prior to coming out to my parents. With time and seeing how much advocating for my community meant to me, my parents came around and, to my surprise, have been a lot more accepting of my queer identity than my younger closeted self could have ever imagined.
Thank you for listening. If you're interested in participating in any of these workshops, please connect with the HIV/AIDS Support Program Assistant or the Harm Reduction Rainbow Space Program Assistant.
Thanks to all the members of the CAYR staff for sharing an overview of our programs and supports available. Now we're going to transition to the in memoriam portion of our World AIDS program, starting with Sharron Spencer. Sharron is a registered social services worker who specializes in grief and bereavement. Sharron is a strong advocate for normalizing and educating the public about the healthy and natural need to grieve our losses and how to best support someone who is grieving. As a content warning, please note that Sharron will be speaking about death and dying.
Good evening. My name is Sharron Spencer. I'm a registered social service worker who has specialized in providing grief counseling and educating people about grief and bereavement. I am honored to be here on World AIDS Day 2020 to talk to you about the tough stuff and suggest ways that we can best support someone, whether they've been newly diagnosed with HIV or through the bereavement after the loss of someone who has died. For someone who is waiting for the results of testing to find out if they have the HIV virus, it can be an incredibly stressful time. What led up to them needing to have the testing done? They may have experienced the anxiety of running through multiple scenarios in their head over and over. Should I get checked? What if it's bad news? What will I do if it comes back positive? This can be a very lonely time too. When there is a positive diagnosis, suddenly they belong to a club that no one wants to belong to. Even if they suspected that they were HIV positive, they will likely be shocked. For some people, their world feels like it's been turned upside down. Sometimes people will experience guilt and shame because of the stigma around HIV and AIDS. The struggle of not wanting people to find out and knowing that there are certain people close to them who they must tell. This brings up all kinds of scenarios such as judgment, assumptions, and rejection. By encouraging them to remember that there is great success by taking their medications regularly as directed, they can live a healthy life. By educating ourselves, we can help to remove the stigma, discrimination, and exclusion that exists. We know that with this virus, there are certain cancers and other illnesses that can occur. These illnesses can flip the individual from being HIV positive and nearly undetected to having AIDS. It is important to discuss with our family and friends our wishes of how we wish the end of our life to look like. Get a will done if there isn't one. There is the advancedcareplanning.ca website that will provide care planning toolkits for you that helps you to guides you through decisions and questions that you need to provide the answers to. It's not an easy task at all. But think about what a gift this can be to your people who are close to you. If you are unconscious or unable to make care decisions, and they know what your wishes are, this will make it so much easier for them. This is a heart-wrenching time, and they want to know that they have honored and provided dignity to their loved one. They want to know that they did right by them. We also need to remember to support the caregivers. Many caregivers, their whole lives revolve around caring for their person. Doctor's appointments, treatment appointments, testing appointments. They can get some support at a local community hospice. They often will have a caregiver support group. There are 5 in York Region, so just have a look to see which one your area has available for you. A community hospice will also have different supports and activities available for the person who is living with their life-limiting illness. If nothing else, it can provide some respite for the caregiver. But it's important that we support the caregiver into being able to regularly recharge their batteries. They will be better able to cope on those tough days, be supportive, and giving to their person if their batteries are charged. At the end of life, person needs to grieve their life. It's part of the process of them finding meaning for the life that they lived and also to help them find their peace. It's important to always have hope. Hope changes as our illness progresses. Initially, it might be hope for a cure or a remission, and then it can change to having hope for a good day, a pain-free day, or maybe a visit with a friend. Or sometimes it's as simple as being able to see the sunshine coming through the window. Remember that even when someone is dying, they are still living until they take their last breath. After someone dies from an illness, Even when we know that it's going to happen, we're still not prepared for it. It's difficult to believe that our special someone is no longer here. We know and understand in our heads, but our hearts need some time to catch up. It is natural and healthy for us to grieve the death of someone. We are missing the connection that we had with them. As a griever, we're often surprised by the intensity of our emotions. Grief can affect us mentally, physically, spiritually. It can affect our appetite, our sleep patterns. We can find ourselves having difficulty focusing on completing the simplest of tasks. Making decisions can be particularly difficult when they never were before. Some people describe themselves as feeling as if they're in a fog, or they feel empty, or they feel numb, or lost. For some, their spirituality is affected after the death of someone, and it can change their worldview. Some may turn to religion, others may walk away from it. Things that used to give people pleasure and enjoyment no longer do. Some people cry, some people don't. Neither is right or wrong. For the griever, their world has stopped, and a few weeks afterwards, it seems like everyone has returned to living their lives while theirs is stuck. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. It ebbs and it flows. One moment you're managing to cope, and the next you're overcome with your grief. I know it sounds cliche for me to say this, but please know that it does get easier as we learn to build our new world around our grief. My dog is having a dream right now. In fact, we never stop grieving. If we feel love or fondness for someone, we will always miss them. So how can we best support someone who's grieving? Many people do not know how to respond to grief. They feel helpless in knowing what to say or do. Our society puts a lot of pressure on people to, return to normal. We tend to say, call me if you need anything. They're not going to call you. Most of the time in the first few months, they don't know what they need. So offer concrete actions of help, such as, I'm going to the grocery store on Tuesday. What can I pick up for you? And even if they say, oh, I don't need anything, just pick up a few essentials. Offer to take their dog for a walk or shovel their snow, mow their lawn. If there's children, offer to take them to the park. But most importantly, the best thing you can do is to sit with someone, half an hour or an hour. Tell stories about their person if you knew them. Say their name. Get them to tell you stories about them. They will love to talk about their person and know that someone else remembers them or cared to hear stories about them, that someone meant something to other people too. That's priceless. Yes, they may cry. They may laugh too. It's okay. For those of you who are grieving right now, you need to remember to take care of yourself. This means getting some good nutrition every day. Just eating one healthy meal can make all the difference. Having a good sleep routine, even if you're having difficulty sleeping, it will come back. Good hygiene. Take that shower, brush your teeth. It does feel better. Getting outside in nature, moving your body. A lot of people think that if they exhaust themselves and distract themselves throughout the day, they'll crash at night and they won't have to think about their grief or the person they're missing. But it doesn't work that way. It's important for you to allow yourself to feel it, to sit in it every day, even if it's just for an hour, because equally it's important that we take a break from our grief. Studies have shown that mindfulness practices such as writing or journaling or doing some art, guided meditation, or moving our body, such as walking, these are beneficial. They help because these are activities that bring us back to the present moment. This is where our grief sits. If we avoid our grief, it manifests itself in other serious ways later on. Above all, give yourself permission to grieve. Be kind to yourself because you are grieving. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share some information with you. I hope that you found it helpful, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.